welcome to the Eastern Idaho.
Hey, she's your sister. You can't marry her. Oh, hey guys.
How you guys doing?
Good. How are
Hey.
you?
Sorry, wrong
Good.
show.
All right.
I was
Whoops.
thought it was a newscast.
Yeah.
This is the-
No,
this is-
we're here tonight. I think it's going to be a good one. I think reincarnation is on the plate tonight, and I'm excited because this one is. I love this topic. I can talk about this topic a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Did you guys have a good week? No?
No, it's been
Jesse?
nuts. Yeah.
Two things.
Nuts.
School just started again. Yesterday, I had heard about 15 students around.
Heard of what?
Herd of students.
I've heard of students.
Yeah.
Listen, you
Probably
can't
these
talk
are
about
the
the fair
little
that way.
cows.
You cannot talk about the fair that way. They're not called students. They're called cows.
Anyway. Yeah. All these people going, wandering around going, where's this room? Where's that room? I'm like, there's 3 of them. And there's a number above the door that tells you where it's at, what number it is. Figure it out from there. And they still are like, I don't know where this is. So I had to get like a dry erase marker and like write the room number on a couple windows about, yeah, right here. This is biology. And even the teacher was like, a professor walked up and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, and he's like, I'm putting the number here so students won't get lost. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah.
You sound like a frat boy.
I mean, like,
I'm like,
yeah.
He's like, we're like, I'm like,
Like,
can tell you
meow,
we're gonna
meow,
call
meow,
it.
meow, meow.
I don't know how to take that.
Well, it's funny. I think you guys are funny. So are these freshmen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on, they're
Or they're
scared.
seniors.
They're probably they're drunken seniors. They're probably nervous.
Well, yeah, it's the first week.
Yeah. Cut
So,
a little break. Go get it.
Yeah. I left it up for a little bit and then I'm like, if they don't get it by now, they're not going to get it. So
They'll figure it out. 30. They'll figure it out.
if I swear to God, if I go in there Monday and there's another herd of students going, I don't know where this room is. And I'm like, we got piece of paper with the schedule with the room number right at the top of it. They can't read. I
Use
don't know how
Google
they got this
Maps.
far.
Google Maps,
Yeah.
Chat BT.
You have arrived.
Okay.
And I
So
hated
then,
high
Max,
school at
you were
first day.
gonna talk about the first subject tonight for reincarnation.
Yeah.
This will be interesting.
All righty. Thanks for the segue, Colleen.
Thank you.
So anyway, this evening we're going to be talking about reincarnation. And reincarnation is a belief that after physical death, a person's non-physical essence, essence either is described as either your soul or your consciousness, is reborn into another physical body, whether it's human, animal, or spiritual. So that's kind of interesting because I know that a lot of natives, indigenous people, when they pass away, they kind of are rebirthed into an animal like a wolf or something like that. So eagle, or that's their belief. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm not anybody to tell them what to do. This concept also is known as rebirth or transmigration.
Mm-hmm.
I love how we put big words and stuff like that. It's a central tenet in many Eastern religions. So it's Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and it's seen as a process of spiritual development and learning through successive lifetimes. So these people that are reincarnated, they're taking that that part of the essence of all their other lives, and they stack all that stuff in there, and they learn and teach by that. The cycle of reincarnation is often guided by the law of karma, and everybody says, karma this, karma that, but karma is something that is defined by reincarnation is defined by the law of karma, and law of karma is where actions in one life determine how the circumstances of the next are. So they've talked
Obviously,
about
still not tall.
right,
Still
exactly.
not tall.
Black, but they've talked about how time travel and that kind of stuff. Somebody that goes back in time and they move. It's the butterfly effect, right? You take that step back in time and you change one thing, and it changes the life for a lot of other people. So this is how reincarnation works. The soul or the essence, right? We'll call it the soul. It's the core idea that the individual's animating presence, distinct from the physical body, that persists after death. Now, there are stories about people that are passing away, and at their last minute, people have actually seen their soul leave their body. And, I've had a couple near-death experiences, and I've seen my soul leave my body. And thankfully, there's so much room in my body, it was able to come back in.
It just moved to the side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I've had near-death experiences, and that's for another time. That's for almost. Oh, well. Anyway, so they've talked about spiritual growth, right? I'm sorry, let's take a step backwards. They talk about the cycle of birth and death. That's when the soul actually enters a new physical body or form, beginning that new life. So there's a thought process that there's only a finite number of souls. And that not everybody, and this is a thought process, this is not my process, this is not my thought, but there's a thought that there's only a finite number of souls, and not everybody has a soul. So that's kind of interesting. Now I know gingers don't have souls.
Oh, stop it.
Anyway, so then they go from there. Once they've started that beginning of new life, they start their spiritual growth. The cycle provides opportunities for the soul to evolve, learn, and refine itself through various experiences and actions. And this is where karma comes in. So karma is your moral, it's your life code. It's the moral equality of one person's actions in a past life influences conditions of the next, guiding the soul's journey. So that's kind of interesting, that as you come through, you start in your reincarnation process, that your past kind of dictates your future. As samsara, in some traditions, this is ongoing death and rebirth, known as samsara. So it's just a different thing. Religions and traditions. Hinduism, the soul is eternal and cycles through many human and other bodies until it achieves liberation and becomes one with God. So they could go through a lot of different bodies. Now, I do know, and I think it's Hinduism, that they talk about how how people are reincarnated into a cow, and that cows are sacred. So that's why you'll see a lot of they don't eat a lot of red meat because of that. They think it's Uncle Bob. In Buddhism,
they will actually stop traffic for a cow in India to cross the street.
Yes. In Buddhism, the reincarnation is central to the Buddhist worldview, with the habitual actions in this life propelling future rebirths within the cycle of samsara. So samsara is actually part of the Buddhist thought process. Jainism is the soul accumulates karmic particles, building it to a body and requiring rebirth until it is free from all karma. So they've got to go through, in Jainism, they'll go through, get rid of all their karma. And once they've gotten rid of all that karma, that's when they can be rebirthed. Other traditions beliefs in reincarnation also appear in Greek philosophy, right? Plato was a huge, huge proponent of reincarnation, and in some African religions and modern movements like theosophy. So that's kind of the how reincarnation works. Whatever your beliefs are, that's cool. But these are just some of the other religious beliefs that are kind of worldwide, and I think reincarnation is very interesting. I do believe that souls of other people do hang out, and I'm not sure if they inhabit babies or whatever they do, but I think that's kind of an interesting thought process that they're able to do stuff like that. So I guess it's your belief and whatever it is. And apparently you can't get a hamburger in India, so there's that.
Well, there's some. I know it's I think it's more of a. I'm trying to remember if it's Hindu, but the belief that your family unit is always your family unit. You change places every time you come back, but that core family is always there because those souls are. I don't know what that noise is. Somebody's mic is making a bunch of noise, but that family unit is there for every reincarnation. Like the brother may be the wife the next time, and the wife may be the son. You know what I mean? It's like you just trade places constantly. And I hope not.
That is gross.
Well, no, it's not. I mean, it's because you're not like, holy moly. Anyway, what I'm saying is I hope not, because there's somebody in my family that I hope I'm never attached to again, ever. So, but that process is there, and then that process, that thought process that we come back to better ourselves, that we're trying to constantly work out the issues from the last life to get that one step higher. Why? I don't know. I mean, are we supposed to achieve some ultimate intelligence or perfection? I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't know. I do know that there's people that sometimes you're drawn to, and there's no explanation why you're drawn to them. And it could be that karmic soul thing. Like you knew each other in a past life, and you're supposed to come together in this life to teach each other a lesson.
Financial responsibility.
That's me.
What is that?
That was
radio.
me.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I'm swapping over, going from my phone back to my laptop.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Jesse, did you have a case you wanted to bring up, or did you want to talk about?
No, I just find it fascinating with reincarnation. Like I took an ancient Egypt class. I don't know if anybody's going to talk about that, but I like their beliefs too. When they were talking about reincarnation, they thought of like more, they didn't believe in the cycle of being reborn. They, as a new person or an animal, instead their belief were like, it were centered around rebirth, transformation and eternal life. So I was kind of reading about that. They talk about the different types of souls. There's like different spiritual elements. Like you have the Ka, which is your life force, and that's needing food and offerings after death. So hence why there are, when they come across ancient Egypt burials, you'll see that there's these jars all over the place. And that was like they believed. Also, Native Americans believed that as well. There are things that they were, adding, doing as well. So you have your personality, which was called the Ba. It was your personality and your spirit, where it could travel between the world of the living and the dead. And then you have the Aka. I can't say it. I'm sorry if I'm slandering these. And that is like the transfigured, or your internal soul. And that was formed after, proper burial and rituals. This is why they did extra care of your body back in ancient Egypt and why you were wrapped. Think about this. This also started the mortuary practice. If you really think it started from the ancient Egypts and probably sooner, but this is the most documented of preservation for bodies. And then you talked though, so death wasn't really the end for the ancient Egypts, and that's what they believed. You have the cycle of Horus and the cycle of rebirth. The god Osiris, who was killed and resurrected, became the model for Egyptian ideas of their internal life. Just as Osiris was reborn, so too was a human share that renewal. So there was just an afterlife. Even though they didn't believe coming back to Earth, they believed in that eternal life. And I enjoyed it. Like they also talk about their afterlife journey. The dead underwent the weighing of the heart, if everybody remembers that. There's a weighing of a heart ritual where the soul would go over, and the mat is what and I could be slaughtering it again, so sorry. If they take the heart, which was a god and a dog. So if you ever look these up, it's intertwined. And if the dog ate your heart, that means you were impure in your heart. So,
wow.
And if the heart was lighter than the feather of the truth, basically, then you were able to go into your eternal afterlife. So, yeah.
Wow. 3 doors to pick from.
Yeah. Here's the doors. It's like, what price do you want to pick up? But the price is right. Transformation into beings. Egyptian text, Book of the Dead. Everybody knows about the mummy, and they talk about the Book of the Dead and the Book of the Life. It was actually, I believe it was kind of opposite. The Book of the Dead takes life, and then the Book of the Living gives life, right? No, or was it the stuff? I can't remember. It's been a hot minute since I watched that. So that Book of the Dead describes how souls could transform into birds or lotus flowers or even deities afterlife. So they can become gods themselves. And even the pharaohs believed that this was going to happen. They were going to become a god themselves. This gave a sense of a renewal, which might feel similar to reincarnation. No, it wasn't really returning to Earth. So anyway, that's my spiel on my reincarnation stuff. I only had one near-death experience. So, yeah, that was interesting.
Tell us about it if you want. I mean, it's interesting.
Oh, no, it's fine. So when I was little, we didn't live here. We came to visit my grandparents who lived in our area at the time. And they had a mall which had a swimming pool in it with an inner tube or a tube is it inner tubes or what do they call them? They're like a slide and it's water slide. Okay.
Hydro
Yeah.
tube.
Hydro tube. Yeah. So I was never been there and I was playing. I think I was like 8. And when I went, I was scared to death the first time I went down. And then I went down the second time and it was fine. So all I remember is I remember coming out of the tube, but my body went, ooh, like this. And the top of my head hit the top of the tube. And all I remember is seeing myself in the pool, looking down, and I could see myself floating in the pool.
Wow.
And the next thing I know, my grandpa is pulling me out of the pool going, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" So yeah.
Wow.
I clearly remember that. And yeah, so that was interesting. I really felt like my body did go out because why would I see myself floating?
Yeah.
And I didn't understand at the time what that was. I was like, this is interesting.
Oh, that.
But yeah.
Sorry. No, it just reminded me of a scene from Doctor Strange when he met the Ancient One. She went, and he's like, well, they're talking, and he's like, well, I don't, something about a soul or something like that. And she's like, oh, okay, looks him in the chest, and his soul leaves his body for a minute, and then comes back. So
that's more like a near-death experience.
Yeah, that's near death. Yeah.
Right. So they say, I mean, they say if you are actually see yourself floating in the water or whatever, and a lot of people see themselves in emergency rooms, right? And they will actually describe everything that was going on when they're calling the code, what they're doing, da 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 da. But there's one certainty that they can't. There's one thing that they just don't see that's prevalent in that place. But they call, I think that's more of a near death. I've never had anything like that. I hit my head on the ground and had deja vu a lot of times and vomited, but never had. I mean, I did. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had a couple near-death experiences, but again, this isn't the platform for that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well.
Yeah. So the reincarnation is really interesting, and we should do a show on near-death stuff. But I had my own experience that my mom, as I got older, said, "Do you remember doing this?" I don't remember all of it, but I remember the gentleman involved and the store involved. And I think, Jesse, you've heard this before, but I was 5, and there was my mom took me for the first time. There was you know how you have like little Chinatown and places like that in big cities? You have these really ethnic sections. She took me to this place in LA called Alvera Street, and it was like Little Mexico. Have you heard of that or been there? Yeah,
I think
it's very ethnic, and it's very a couple of blocks. And she says, as soon as we got out of the car and she was walking me, it's like a closed street. There's no cars through it, and you can walk through it. I was adamant about taking her to meet, and I was saying his name. I don't remember his name now, but she goes, "Who are you talking about?" And I'm like, we need to go see him. We need to go see him. I was adamant. I'm like 5 years old, never been there ever. And I was adamant about going to see this gentleman. And I'm dragging her down the street, around the corner, and down the stairs into the basement of a building where there was a candle maker. And I flung the door open and I started speaking to him in Spanish. And I crawled up on a chair and I'm talking about our family. And he's looking at my mom and looking at me, and he was asking her, like, what is going on? And she said, humor her, just talk with her and see where this goes. And I talked all about the family, and he goes, there's no way she could know this. Now, I did know Spanish at the point, but not fluently like I was speaking with him. Like I could see like agua and things like that. We had, but I was like in it with this guy, like talking about everything. Wow. My mom was really blown away. And she said, he said, there's no way that she could know this if she wasn't so-and-so. And I don't know if I was like his aunt or his sister or somebody who'd come back. Yeah, I don't remember really any of the rest of the day other than sitting in the candle shop and him speaking with him.
I wouldn't say that's like reincarnation. I would say that's more of like, what do you? A vessel, like a radio, like almost like a radio, like they're like, I'm going to use.
I don't. Oh yeah, I see, almost now
to talk to somebody.
I don't think so.
I would say that's more reincarnation because just like Bertie said, it's a vessel, and they say, we all know that children are closer, but so kind of building off what Bertie said, that reincarnated person is using you as a vessel.
Well,
so
maybe. I mean, that sounds to me more like a possession, and that's certainly not that. I mean, it was like that. It was. I don't know. I don't think so.
It's like the movie Ghost when one of them pops into the psychic and says and starts talking, and they get kicked out. eventually.
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't know.
supposed to repeat this word for word.
I do have a really fascinating case, but can't Mud Lover, what do you have? Do you have a case that you wanted to present?
Okay, I'll touch on it a little bit, but first I'd like to say hello to my Aunt Lori, it says she's watching. So, hi, Lori.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Lori.
Thanks for watching, Lori.
Yeah. My case is on. Her name is Shantai Devi. But a precursor to that is there was a lady named Lugdi, and she was born in 1902. At the age of 10, she married a gentleman named Kedar, and they had some children. And then on her last birth, so on September 25th, 1925, she gave birth to a healthy son by C-section. But then 9 days later, she passed away from complications at the age of 23. So this was in 1925. And on December 11th, 1926, which is 1 year and 10 months after Lugdi passed away, Shanti was born. So she grows up. She doesn't speak or babble until she's 4. Once she did begin speaking, she was speaking in a dialect different than the rest of the family. So no one knew what she was talking about. She then was telling her mom about things, and her mom was like, no, really doesn't know what she's talking about. And then she's teased in school. She's like 6, and she's getting teased in school about drawings she has drawn of a temple. And the kids are all, that's not this temple. What are you drawing? And you know how kids are. And so she's talking about it, and she goes, well, I know it's not the local temple. It's this temple. And so time goes on, and she's telling her stories, and she finally comes across this lawyer, the neighbor. The neighbor is a lawyer, and so she's telling these stories, and then they start to do some research on them. So they discover that, okay, now I'm lost. I do this every time. Anyway, she starts telling stories, and the language she's speaking, it's about Luigi, what she experienced in her life before she passed away. So she meets up with these people that they're older now. It's like a cousin of the dad, I believe, her husband of her dad. And she's asking him questions that no one really should know, and especially this little girl. And so anyway, Mahat Gandhi, help me with that one.
Oh, Mahatma. Yeah.
Yeah, Gandhi discovers this, and he does a whole bunch of research on her, and logged her accounts, and so there
This
was a
was
book
was
written
she
about
in
her.
India? Where was she?
India, yeah, India,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, they wrote books on her accounts. And
And what was her name?
Shanti, Shanti, Devi, Devi.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really an interesting story. I know I butchered it a little, but
Well, these
yeah.
stories are
So
fascinating because what's interesting is in my case, you lose it pretty quickly as you age. So my mom said we talked a lot about the candle maker, and I still remember him, and I remember the store. We spoke a lot about it, but then it faded as I grew older. Like the experience just kind of faded. And I have a really interesting story here. This one's fascinating to me, and I didn't realize I had the book on this until I went upstairs and found the book. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is a story about James
Nice.
Leininger. And this same thing that happened with James. So it did fade after a while, but there was something that happened that helped it fade. So this is a super well-known reincarnation case. It was actually studied by some universities. A lot of people came out and poo-pooed it. But anyway, what happened was definitely spot on for reincarnation. James was born on April 10th, 1998 in San Francisco, and to Bruce and Andrea. So Bruce was a human resources exec in San Francisco. Andrea was a resume writer and former professional dancer. And they had moved, I guess, to Dallas and then to Lafayette, Louisiana after James was born. So James, he is about 22 months old. So he's a little dude, okay? And they take him to the Flight Museum in Dallas. And they said that he was so transfixed by the World War II aircraft that they had to force him to leave. Like that's the only thing he wanted to see were those particular aircraft. Nothing more modern. It was those aircraft. And they literally had to peel him away because he didn't want to leave. He was making a scene. So they forced him to leave. And then just a few months later, just before he turned 2, they're passing by a toy shop when there's like this bin of toys. And there's like boats and all kinds of toys. And she pulls out this little propeller plane because she remembers that her son was so captivated by these World War II planes. And he went nuts for it. And he said, look, she told him, look, there's even a bomb under it. And he said in his little 2-year-old voice, that's a drop tank. Couldn't say it right. She's like, what is that? So they went home and she told her husband what he had said. And he goes, well, he said, now he's not even 2. That's not a bomb, Mommy. It's a drop tank. And that's indeed what it was. The design, it was a tank full of fuel for the plane to go longer distance, right? So it looks like a bomb, but it wasn't. And how did he know that? I mean, it's not, she said, they didn't watch World War II stuff. They weren't war buffs. They didn't talk about this kind of stuff. Nobody was a pilot in the family. He hadn't been to an airport really, other than like maybe a large airport. He didn't know this stuff. He's not 2. So they're like, this is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
After 2, he starts having all these nightmares, like off the hook nightmares. And they said as often as 5 times a week. And he would scream and he'd kick his legs in the air and he'd cry, airplane crash, airplane crash. And he'd just scream it, airplane crash. And then he would say, plane on fire, little man can't get out. He would just shout over and over again every single night. At 28 months, in response, they were questioning him. His parents questioning him about stuff. And he told his parents that he was shot down by the Japanese in his plane. And they're thinking, wow, wild an imagination. You know, what do you, whoa.
Yeah.
So they're starting to put all of this together like, there's something a little more than normal here. This is more.
Right.
So about 2 weeks later, he adds that his name had been James and he'd flown in a Corsair. Now remember, he's 28 months old. Said he flew in a Corsair and that he'd flown from a boat and he gave the name as Natoma. there was indeed the USS Natoma,
Mm-hmm.
which was a
Wow.
carrier in World War II. So his dad's like, this is interesting. So James added that he had a friend, another pilot named Jack Larson, and that he'd been shot down near Iwo Jima. Okay, so he's adding some detail here at 28 months. All right. So he like would crash his little planes into the furniture. He was like, they're always crashing, like all of his toy planes. That's all he wanted was toy planes, and they would crash, and the propellers would come off and everything else. And then he would draw scenes at his little mind would draw war scenes of planes going into the water and crashing. And then he would always sign him James III. And they're like, what is going on here? So his dad,
Right.
Okay, I've had enough of this. I want to know what's going on. So he went to, when was this? When was this child born? I said 98. So the internet is out at that point, right?
Wow.
So this is now 2000. So James starts researching this stuff, and he finds out, because he's a very devout Christian and he doesn't believe in reincarnation really. He's like, what's going on with my son? And he's really nervous about it. So he reaches out to a gentleman to get some information on maybe some of the pilots that were killed in World War II. And he finds out that there was a James McReady Houston Jr. of Pennsylvania who'd been killed near Iwo Jima at 21 years of age, and whose life his son's James statements could match. Like, he's saying all of this stuff. His kid is saying all this stuff about the life of this pilot that he would have no knowledge of. Okay. And Houston was actually shot down in a Wildcat, but that makes sense that he said a Corsair, because he might have flown a Corsair as well. You know, he may have actually trained in both. But he was shot down in a Wildcat, not a Corsair. But he did fly off the Natoma, the USS Natoma, and that's where he was shot down.
Wow.
So he visited, his dad's visited this Houston's sister named Ann Barron, and they uncovered Houston standing in front of a Corsair. So he did fly a Corsair. And so when they confirmed that he'd flown the aircraft, and then there was an eyewitness who said that the plane had been hit in the engine during the war, and it exploded in a ball of fire and went down it crashed before the pilot could ever eject. So that's how this pilot died. Okay. And then, so they study this little boy. When he was 3, he starts going through regression therapy. And they thought, let's see if we can document all of this stuff. And they went through, they documented some of this in the Children's Past Lives, How Past Life Memory Affects Your Child. Carol Bowman, I guess, wrote the book. And they suggested some techniques for relieving this little boy of his nightmares. And trying to give him like some assurance that he's okay, that he's not the person in the airplane, that he's lived, that he is who he is now. And this was actually picked up by ABC Primetime, and then it was picked up through a gentleman. Let's see. I'm trying to remember, or I'm trying to find out who this Tucker is, because the only Tucker that comes to mind is the Tucker that we all know on Fox, right? But there's this woman named Tucker, and I'm not sure who it was, because they never say his first name that I can see, unless I've missed it 1,000 times. Oh, Jim, maybe Jim Tucker. He's a child psychiatrist, and he starts investigating this, and he found out that indeed the plane that was shot down crashed into the water. He died in the battle of Iwo Jima. The plane was on fire and sank, and he could not get out. He had trained in Corsairs. He flew off the Natomas. He was shot down by the Japanese. And the little boy had also he would also say that when he would land, the tires would go flat. And Corsairs were famous for that. When they landed, they
Wow.
go flat tires. So it was really interesting that this child had all this level of detail. There was a lot of skepticism and criticism in this, but how did he know? How did he know?
Yeah. Right.
It's
That's
not-
wild. That's
Yeah,
wild. And you know what's
seriously.
funny is I've heard a lot of stories like that, and they're usually in that age range.
Yeah.
You know, that the babbling language probably until about, well, in my case, I babbled for a long time. I still babble, but a lot of times that, you know, the kid will be 2, 3, 4, and they'll, some of the stuff that they come up with is there's no friggin' way that this kid could know that. And
Yeah.
come to find out, they'll start doing research, and like in this case, that's the kind of stuff that happens. There's, and then you think, well, is that kid going to be destined for greatness? Is that kid going to be, you know, whatever? And a lot of times they're just a normal kid after that. Once they, like you said, they progress or they move away from that or they grow, they have faint memories of stuff like that. And in some of these cases, these kids don't have that memory, that it's gone completely.
Yeah, I'd like to know if he ever continued with aviation.
See how? Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
Would that be his calling?
Right. So
You know?
they did write a book about all of this called Soul Survivor, and that's the book I have upstairs. Somebody bought it for me in a book from a bookstore, I think last Christmas, and gave it to me. And I haven't read it yet. And I went, oh my gosh, I have this book. So now I'm totally going to read it. But
Heck yeah.
one of the things that was really interesting is after some of these interviews and all of this kind of went viral, right? Fox and Friends and all of these different media outlets had picked it up. And a Japanese TV station actually paid for that child and his family to come over to Iwo Jima and do a ceremony for the pilot to honor him. And it was at that time, right at that date, that the dream stopped. And the child was able to then kind of letting it go. It was like they honored him. They acknowledged his life. The Japanese acknowledged it. You know what I mean? And he was, then that's when things started lessening for him. Like it stopped being so overwhelming for this child to deal with. So
it's almost like a drop-off point, sort of.
Or a crossover point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? And, and you know,
it's like a pit, like a paranormal, interdimensional, transitional space. And this person went into this kid, and for whatever reason, it got really popular, and they brought him over there, and then it was like a drop-off point. And the kid kid eventually got better. I mean, there's a theory out there that when we die, and if reincarnation is real, then when we're born, we do have memories of our past lives, but when you get older and you start to lose that, like some of us had imaginary friends, right? Or some of us
I don't have any friends. I've never had friends.
Or they're imaginary, make them up. But, or we saw like somebody, what was his name? It was on Unsolved Mysteries, like something like I can't remember the name of the episode.
Slender Man?
No. Like Mr. What was his name? Mr. Curdy. Mr. Curdy. There's this little girl that always saw this gentleman named Mr. Curdy. And she would talk with him and play with him and stuff like that. And the mom was like,
In the
"Who's
back
that?
of a
Who's that?"
car.
And she described him like to the T, and the mom's like, "Okay, whatever, imaginary friend." And they're flipping through a family photo book, and they get to
Oh,
one picture, and they point it, and she points right at him and goes, "That's
that was
Mr.
on the
Hardy."
haunting. A haunting.
Yeah,
That's what
and
that
I
was.
do remember your story from being on Unsolved Mysteries too, the same one.
Yeah. It's a pretty well documented case because the university, I think it was West Virginia, actually studied this child. They had him they brought him in, they did a lot of tests on him, interviews.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, the theory is that you die, you get reincarnated, and when you're born into this world, you're already screaming because you're dying, and then you start all over again. But you still have all these memories from your previous life.
Mm.
But then you got a factory reboot, and you got to learn all this stuff all over again. And then,
Okay,
What
so
about fears?
hmm?
Like, you know how people die of
Me,
different
like,
things, or
I can't have anything touch my neck.
yeah, like like
Right?
Scar.
I have fears of buildings and stairs. I can't, like,
See?
I can't. So if you guys want to kill me, you can push me down the stairs. It's fine.
Clowns.
With clowns.
With clowns.
or
Spiders.
balloons.
Stop
Balloons with
giving me
spiders.
ideas. Stop giving me
So-
ideas. October's almost here.
Yeah. I'm telling you,
Okay,
Bernie.
so let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
So we've kind of decided, and I'm sure there's some rare cases where somebody comes out of a coma and they have a different personality, or while they're in a coma, you know, they're speaking another language, right? You know, that has happened to older folks. But let me ask you, in the thought process of reincarnation, do you think that somebody's soul, right? Because we talked about the soul actually being the last part that leaves the body. Do you think that there is and I'm going to use this word, the soul collector, that actually collects these souls and makes a determination to where we're going to put that soul into that body? How do you think that process works? Or do you think it's just a slam dunk? The one that goes out
I
goes
think
into
they
another?
determine that.
I think there's a meeting of the masses of wherever we go. And I think we all sit around this table and we're like, okay, we're going to give her or him this life. We're going to make Messy Jessie this short. I mean, you're going to marry this guy. You're going to, I mean, I think we all have a contract that we have to do to maybe relearn things that we didn't learn in the past.
Yes.
And that way we can go back and basically report and say, this is what we have learned. Well, you didn't learn it enough. So there you go again.
Okay, so on that thought process, do you actually think that that's the reason some people pick things up faster? Because they did that in a prior life, right? They're natural athletes because they were an athlete whenever, or they're just really, right? They're just really good at something because that's what they pick. So do you think that that's something that could happen as well?
Yeah.
I do.
Look at these children. Okay, so I had brought up the book to you guys when we were talking about this called Audrey Rose. So the Audrey Rose part is embellished, but the author of the story of the book, he had his own reincarnation event with his child. Like his child, he believes 100% his child is a reincarnated pianist. Of the highest level, because at 5 with no lessons, he's playing like Mozart on the piano.
Yeah.
There's no rational explanation of how this child could have this knowledge.
Yeah.
And you know, like I said, you're right. Some are prodigies like that. That I think that kind of stuff is really interesting, and it would be interesting. I mean, clearly we'll never know, right?
Mhm.
That this kid was 5 years old and he's reincarnated of a friggin' pilot from World War II, or a infantryman from the Civil War or something like that. And there's been cases like that happen to I guess not a lot of them, but there are cases that I've heard of where they actually, can do, like you said, they'll take them to a certain place, and this is where this happened, and this is where this happened. And this kid, 7, 8, 9, 10, it's irrelevant. There's no way that they would know this stuff. There's no way on this earth that they would know that. Well, how do you know that? Well, I was shot with a 44 millimeter ball, in my eye socket, or whatever, whatever happened. And the kid's 10 years old, or 8 years old, or whatever. So I've always thought that was kind of interesting, just because of stuff like that. There's no way these people could know. That would be like me waking up tomorrow morning. I mean, I hope I wake up tomorrow morning, but, speaking fluent, whatever,
Pig
and
Latin.
never having that base, so English. Look at me speaking English.
Well, there's that.
Well, Mike.
There was
Sorry.
a
Go ahead,
case
Dirty.
of one guy who was at a party, and he jumped into a pool, and he wasn't paying attention, and it was the shallow end, and he went straight down to the bottom, hit his head. He went to the hospital. He was in a coma for a week. He woke up, and the next thing he knew is that he could play a piano. Like he never played piano, but he could just make piano music all by
Do you
himself.
think that's I mean, he's not. That's not.
I don't think it's reincarnation necessarily. No. I don't know what that is. I mean,
There's a lot of people who have had head injuries, and they start speaking a different language or have a different dialect.
Yeah,
like they're from New York, and they start speaking like they're from
a southern accent or whatever.
Yeah, at the South, or right.
I don't know. Maybe it's maybe they crossed over just maybe they crossed over just a smidgen, and something snuck in and then got kicked out.
I forgot my phone. I'll be right back.
Maybe we're born with all this knowledge, and it's whether or not we tap into those things. Maybe it's all there. Maybe we can all play every instrument, and we can all solve all of these super duper equations, but it's whether or not we tap into that level of consciousness or not. Like where our paths go. Maybe it's all there. Because they say we only use 10% of our brains or something like that.
Yeah, 1.5.
So maybe it's all there. We have universal knowledge, and some people are more advanced than the others because they come back more. Right. And then as you keep coming back, you open it another door and another door and another door, and then pretty soon you're the Einstein. I don't know how it works, but I don't know.
Yeah. What about when you go and visit places and then you get like I've been here before, and I can't tell you how many times that I have done that, particularly like 3 places. And I'm just like, I've been here before.
Yeah, for me, I've always struggled with the concept of feeling at home somewhere. Like obviously where I grew up feels home, but it doesn't really feel like home. I've gone way longer than I've ever lived there. But for me, it was the French Quarter. The very first time I stepped foot into the French Quarter, I knew where everything was. I knew where the best restaurant was. It's not like I studied it was the internet. It was like I knew where everything was, and it felt like going home. The smells, the sounds, the vibe, everything there felt like going home.
Yeah, I picked that up from you, Colleen. You were always telling me I lived here, and I'm like, do you ever stay put?
No. This is the longest I've lived anywhere in my life. Yeah, and I'm really itchy to leave, but I have too much shit now to go anywhere. That's the problem.
It's that gypsy soul.
So yeah, well, in some states, I probably lived 20, 30 different places. I mean, because I worked in a transient occupation. I was training horses, and so,
Yeah.
so I was always on the move. And then I was in the military, and you're always on the move. And then I was doing this, and I was always on the move. So moving didn't
Mhm.
bother me. But yeah, but in all of the places, I think East Tennessee probably is the second. I don't think I could live in the French Quarter now because I don't like that many people around me. But but being there felt so good to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Have you guys ever experienced that anywhere you've been?
Mm,
You know, I was sitting here thinking about it. You know what? No, I've never. I maybe when I lived in Illinois, but no, I've never had that. Now I've had flashes of stuff like I've been there before, right? Or if you go around this corner, that's where this is. But I've never had like, okay, um, I sit down. I never had that. You know, I think everybody has that to an extent. I think that, like you said, everybody is born with whatever, you know, a huge vocabulary, for example, and by the time we get around to using it, you know, it's kind of left us or whatever. Um, so I don't know. I'm pretty simple when it comes to stuff like that. I just, you know, I grew up in a little town, knew everybody. Unfortunately, knew a lot of people's business because that's what happens in a small town. And then, yeah, so I've never had anything like that. And, you know, I think people that have had that kind of stuff, like you, for example, that's kind of, that's kind of cool. I mean, to me, I just, you know, it is what it is. So I have had the feeling where I'm driving down the road and I'm supposed to make a right turn and I make a left turn for whatever reason, you know, and it's one of those things where I know I'm supposed to go right. Mud lover's yelling at me to make a right turn and I make a left turn, you know, and I don't know why. Well, I do kind of know why I do that part, but yeah, I think that happens. So.
Well, sometimes you got to wonder, is that your
Are you-
inner voice telling you don't go right because you'll get in that accident or
Mhm.
Sure,
Yeah.
something? Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that could be my guardian angel telling me, "Don't listen to my lover. This
That's
time,
right.
you know, let's poke the bear a little bit."
That's
But
right.
yeah, I think that kind of stuff is interesting, and I think that we are all to a certain level have to quote a famous movie. Everybody has a little bit of shine in them.
Mm-hmm.
Some shine more, some
Yeah,
shine
some shine
less.
less. Yeah.
You know,
I like Atlas, your
I shine
your
less.
devil and your angel sitting here like Kronk from, The Emperor's New Groove.
do it, it'll be funny. No, he's got a point.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole concept is interesting. My mother absolutely believed it without a doubt. So I grew up with it in the back of my head that this is an absolute. I mean, it was like you come back, you keep coming back. So to me, it seems so pointless to go through the whole struggle of life for nothing.
Yeah.
So it gives me validation that there's a reason why we're supposed to learn and change and grow. If we didn't,
Right.
I don't know. I find the whole thing kind of terrifying because all right. I mean, my life is okay, but when I die, who knows where I'm going to go? 100 years in the past or 100 years in the future? Am I going to have a loving family or am I going to have a crap family? You know, I'm like,
well, I think
or are you going to be on your
lessons,
variables,
right? That's the lessons that we're supposed to all go through. You can't, maybe that's why
See,
people who were born with lack of empathy, a sociopath, maybe it's because they've never had to experience any of the trauma of coming up. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe they're lacking,
or maybe
or they had too much.
or maybe they'll experience the trauma that they put on other people, so they learn that lesson.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
the
And then
whole
we have
concept
the.
of this is
I think we did this one, but then we have the Ascended Masters.
right.
Remember that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting episode. I think we did that one on Speaking of Spirits podcast.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm not sure, but that was an interesting, the whole concept of being an ascended master. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think everybody has their own belief. I'd be curious to, find out what our audience thinks. What is their belief and what is our, I like to learn from different people and different souls. So, you can say, but I'd like to see what other people believe. Like, do we really go to a table and talk about what our next life is? Or, because some skeptical people will also talk about how, well, why would I choose this life if I decide to be homeless and go through all this trauma and pain? Like that's dumb. I could see people saying that.
I think, but I don't know that you necessarily choose your path. I think you choose to come back because there's lessons, but then there's free will, and you're still able to make stupid mistakes or bad mistakes, or to have tragic things happen to you, or you know what I'm saying? Or have wonderful things happen to you, and you end up being a millionaire. You know what I'm saying? So I just still think you have free will and you choose your path. And that may be why you come back so many times.
Yeah. Instead of taking a left, I
it's
took a
funny.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. You never know.
You never know.
It's funny because we always talk about, oh my gosh, if I was a millionaire, and because, if I was a millionaire, this would happen. And I'm sure becoming a millionaire comes with its own sort of problems.
I wouldn't mind
probably not the,
Probably the library would come back after for fees. Yes.
Yeah. A different type of which car am I going to drive today, or whatever, which watch am I going to wear today?
Right.
Well, you can have all the money in the world and be the most miserable SOB ever.
Yes, but you can also be the happiest person too. So
then again,
so let me ask you this. Let me ask you this question. Do you think that as you're coming into life, that you're predestined? And I understand the free will aspect, but do you think that as you're coming into life that you are predestined to do a certain thing, i.e. help folks out, or teach people? Or do you think that we're predestined, or do you think that it's just the luck of the draw?
I don't think it's a carry on either. What do you think, Jesse?
I think it's remnants of your past life. I think
maybe.
I think it's something that you carry with you, but it's
so
your choice.
Yeah, that's the thing. We have so many junctions and cross points in our lives where we make all of these decisions that affect the next step and the next step and the next step. That maybe there's some predetermination there because you're supposed to walk that path. But maybe you go in and you become a doctor and then you start killing your patients too because you haven't achieved the level you need to achieve yet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Looking at my life, right? I've always been like a first responder. I've always been something that is in that life. I don't want to use the word life-saving, right? But I've always was in that role, and that role is something that I've been drawn to a lot. I've been drawn to a manager type, foreman type job. So, is that something that I brought from a past life or something? I don't know.
I don't know. You know what I think we need? A book, a handbook for the recently conceived.
Okay. Okay. Why don't you
Would that-
write that up?
Would that come with a free jar of mayonnaise? I'm just.
Well, as long as it's not Miracle Whip.
And peanut butter.
Oh God. All right, on that note, we're gonna call this a done episode. Yeah, hold on. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Yeah.
Time.
Woo.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Like and subscribe.